Cyril Ramaphosa stood at UNISA on 15 August and asked, "Why do women live in fear of men? Why are black children still disadvantaged? Why do clinics run out of medicine and taps run dry?" But these aren't questions for the public. They're indictments of the very government he leads. After 3 decades of ANC rule, the answers are written in broken institutions, empty promises, and widening inequality. So why is the president asking us what we already know? This national dialogue isn't accountability, it's theatre. A performance where the lead actor pretends not to know the plot he helped write. And the applause he seeks is for questions he already knows the answers to. Welcome to the Rianro Show, stories that touch every South African in one way or another. Is the president so disconnected with the people of South Africa, especially the average man on the street, that he cannot recognize the very failures that the ANC have helped create over more than 3 decades of failed governance? Branded as a citizen-led, non-partisan effort to foster unity and tackle South Africa's systemic crises, Ramaphosa's national dialogue arrives wrapped in constitutional virtue and rhetorical nostalgia. Section 83 is invoked as cover, not conviction. The timing is no accident. Economic paralysis, 32% unemployment, entrenched inequality, and fresh corruption scandals have gutted public trust. The ANC's collapse in the 2024 elections and the scramble into a government of national unity set the stage for this repackaged performance. Ramaphosa leans on the language of struggle and ubuntu, but the substance is missing. Over 1,000 delegates and 200 organizations are paraded as proof of inclusivity, backed by a celebrity-studded eminent persons group. Yet critics see through the choreography. This isn't a roadmap. It's a 700 million rand, or is that 450 million rand? Even the numbers are all over the place as they are trying to hide the millions that will no doubt eventually end up in some cadre's pockets for their hard work at delivering this talk shop designed to absorb outrage, not answer it. Dialogue without accountability is deflection. And South Africans know the difference, as was quite evident with the numerous individuals who made their voices heard at the various intervals over the 2 days of the dialogue. Ramaphosa's speech is, again, a masterclass in rhetorical choreography. He obviously has a skilled writer, and it is designed to inspire, but engineered to deflect. He opens with constitutional theatre, casting himself as a unifier above the fray.
I do so in line with Section 83 of the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa. This gives me a locus standi. For all of us who are here, we are all equal, but it gives me locus standi because I happen to be the state president.
The language is inclusive, almost poetic, but not quite Shakespearean. We are all South Africans, sons and daughters of the same soil.
We are each one of us sons and daughters of the same soil.
It's pathos on tap, evoking the end of apartheid and dangling the promise of shared future. But remember to exclude certain minorities, because BEE and all, you know.
We share the same inheritance of division, of inequality, of pain, and of injustice. We share the same pride at ending the crime of apartheid.
Metaphors like launch 1 million conversations and conquer our concerns and fears dress dialogue as transformation, but the substance never arrives. He nods to real crises: gender-based violence, racial inequality, institutional collapse, from ANC perspective only, with pointed questions that sound bold until you remember who's asking them. Why do women live in fear? Why are black children still left behind? These aren't provocations, they're confessions.
We are embarking on a process that will launch 1 million conversations amongst our people. We all agree that there are many things that are broken in our country. Getting together, talking to each other, we should be able to find solutions on how we can put many of the things that are broken in our country together.
And they come from the man who's had the power to act for years. The speech parades diversity: farmers, waste pickers, people with disabilities, as proof of inclusivity through ANC spectacles.
Gathered here at this national convention are farmers, are informal traders, civic activists, policymakers, traditional leaders, waste pickers, industrial workers, the unemployed men and women of our country.
But representation without distribution is just optics. The call to action is broad, vague, and burdened with slogans: unity and diversity, social compact, ubuntu. It ends with a nod to the Freedom Charter: the people shall govern, as if quoting history absolves the present, where it is clearly only the ANC who governs, and ultimately destroys. Critics aren't fooled. The structure may be polished, but the message is hollow. Ramaphosa speaks like a concerned observer, not the head of state. And that's the real problem. When leadership sounds like commentary, not accountability, you fool the loyalists, whom you keep away from the educated. Because the more you educate, the less they start to support the ANC rhetoric and its false hope. Mr. Ramaphosa, you isolate loyalists from the educated by design, because exposure to truth is political poison. The more people learn, the less they buy into the ANC rhetoric and its recycled promises. It's not loyalty, it's containment. Keep them uninformed and you keep them believing. But education cracks that illusion. Once they see the gap between slogans and lived reality, the spell breaks. False hope doesn't survive scrutiny, and that's the threat you fear most. The speech may sound aspirational, but the cracks are visible. Maybe I'm the lone voice calling it out, but I doubt it. I'm quite sure others see what I see, the gap between polished words and lived reality. The applause is fading and the questions are getting louder. The speech lists the usual suspects: corruption, unemployment, inequality, but offers no timelines, no policy shifts, no accountability. Critics call it a moribund speech, packed with daft questions that expose more than they solve. That is actually a nice word to describe the ANC. Moribund. But back to the speech. So it's not leadership, it's deflection. By framing ANC failures as national burdens, Ramaphosa blurs responsibility and sidesteps the policy wreckage under his own watch. The problems are real. The silence on solutions is louder. Ramaphosa's national dialogue burns through public money like a vanity project. Some have called it an elitist farce, a talk shop for the powerful. And I think they're not wrong. The outrage is national. Opposition parties are boycotting, demanding the funds be redirected to housing, education, and basic services. In a country choking on inequality, this isn't consultation, it's indulgence. And the price tag says everything. From the start, the process reeked of haste and control. Legacy foundations, those tied to liberation icons, walked out, accusing government of overreach. Civil society was sidelined. Chaos followed. Groups felt erased, not engaged. Analysts say it's redundant anyway. South Africans already speak through elections, commissions, and the Zondo report. This isn't a national dialogue. This is a national theatre where the audience isn't invited. The engagement is for those the ANC chooses to engage with. It is selective, not inclusive. Ramaphosa's dialogue isn't about unity. It's about rewriting history. Listen properly. Rewriting history. By blaming apartheid's ghost while dodging 30 years of ANC rule, the president stands accused of gaslighting the nation.
Our own struggle for freedom from the nightmare of apartheid. We share the same pride at ending the crime of apartheid.
I've said it before, and many see the same thing. It is a post-election PR stunt designed to soften anti-ANC backlash, but the anger is real, and it's not going away. That's the growing verdict on Ramaphosa's so-called national dialogue. Opposition parties have dismissed it as a Ramaphosa monologue, not a democratic process. And they're not alone. Skepticism is mounting, with many pointing to the Zondo Commission, its damning findings gathering dust, as proof that talk rarely leads to action. This isn't about feasibility, it's about credibility. And right now, the public sees none. The questions with obvious answers. Allow me to address these questions as they have simple answers. The other questions are social issues, which are separate from these.
Why do so many people live in abject poverty and so few live lives of opulence?
Because the ANC government has created an environment where only 20% of public schools offer adequate resources for quality education, particularly in rural and township areas. This isn't an apartheid hangover, it's an ANC design. Decades in power and rural and township classrooms still run on fumes. The strategy is brutal in its simplicity. Keep the poverty class loyal, keep them uninformed, and keep the votes coming in. Because once education lifts the veil, the game is over. The ANC fears an informed electorate, because an informed electorate stops voting for its own neglect.
Why, after decades of democracy, are the prospects of a white child so much better than those of a black child?
This is an ANC government choice. Provide these children with the resources by building schools where they live, instead of forcing children to go to schools far away from their homes. It is all about education and an environment which ultimately becomes a choice by government. The ANC prefers an uneducated loyal supporter group, as education makes it harder for the ANC to convince those supporters of their relevance when the failures of 3 decades becomes apparent. But this question has another element, an element of division. It is not only a question, but a clever statement that Ramaphosa deliberately uses to divide the country between black and white, even though the ANC is directly responsible for it. Division is good for the ANC, as it keeps the voters under control.
Why do women get paid less than men for the same work?
Is there not a law against this? Does this happen in government? But then also, why do ministers in government earn 2.6 million rand a year while the minimum wage is less than 5,000 rand? Or is there a difference between these people who live in abject poverty while ministers live lives of opulence?
Why do clinics run out of medicine?
ANC government ineptitude. That's it, nothing else.
And why do taps run dry?
Again, ANC government ineptitude. Mr. Ramaphosa, repeating the question South Africans have been asking for decades isn't leadership, it's evasion. We don't need echoes, we need answers, and we need accountability. The ministers who've presided over collapse don't deserve applause. They deserve consequences. Maybe a small cell, a steel door, and a view of the justice system they've ignored would remind them. Public office is not a luxury suite. It's a contract with the people, and that contract has been broken. Your role is to serve the people, not to talk down on them or ask them questions. Start serving. Ramaphosa's national dialogue has sparked outrage, walkouts, and deep public skepticism. But the question now is, what do you see? A genuine attempt to fix a broken system, or a high-budget distraction from decades of failure? If you were in the room, what would you demand? What truths would you refuse to let them dodge? Thank you for watching, and if you found any value in this video, please do like, share and subscribe, and I will catch you in the next one.